Hello, I'm back. I'm not making videos quite as often now, which is probably good. That means I'm getting work done. Been writing on my note cards and kind of finding my flow between like adding features that I've been meaning to add and cleaning stuff up, doing a lot of polish. It's really important to do kind of both, I find, because one, makes you feel like you're moving forward, and then the other one makes you feel good about the work you've already done. So let's just kind of take a look at the website and some of the things I've been doing. Some of it's behind the scenes, so anything I'm doing like web-based, like the HTML of the site, I don't show, just because like I don't want people seeing how I do that stuff. It's not pretty. So here I'll sign in first. So there's a couple things I've added. There's a donation button now at the top. I've realized that recently, because of the strike, there's talk about the producers trying to starve us out so that the actors and writers lose our apartments and our homes. And took that to heart a little bit yesterday and realized they could probably do it. So I had to bite the bullet and just straight up make a donation campaign. So I put a nice, big, clear button at the top of the website. So if you want to help me not get evicted during the writers and actors strike, you can click this button right here. It does something that drives me a little crazy. So if you go to if you click it, you go to a little PayPal fundraising page. See, I've raised a little bit so far, but far from what I actually need to survive. But this banner at the top, I'm going to make a good one later. This is sort of like a holdover. I think I used this for Facebook one time, but it's blurry and it drives me crazy because I have no control over it. This is the kind of thing where if it was like on my site, I would do everything in my power to fix this. But because it's a PayPal problem, it's stuck that way. Drives me nuts. I have no idea how to fix this. So I think it makes me look stupid, which I hate looking stupid when it comes to visual design. So we can go back to my site where it actually looks good. So you'll notice here, actually, I'll refresh this and you can kind of see. So one of the things I've added before, when you loaded up the main menu, Charlie would pull out her flute and play it and then just kind of get stuck there. I have all of these little animations for her. And, they're in the prototype of the game. You can go, if you find a dandelion and harvest it, and then sometimes you'll get the little puff, and then you can, use an action to blow on it. And so I just have that animation lying around. So what I did is I took all the little things that Charlie does from forward facing, and I've randomized them with her idle animation. So every 5 seconds, there's a chance she will do something new, right? So she just took out her book. She's just going to kind of sit and read it for a little while, also slightly randomized. Then she'll put it away and go back to her idle animation. And, something like this is actually, I find to be very impactful. People still think about Sonic tapping his foot, and that's like almost 30 years ago. And because, if she's just standing there like a little mannequin, then it doesn't feel like it's anything. It makes the thing feel like it's not really a game. But if she's just kind of chilling out and minding her own business, it gives her like a sense of interiority, right? She's making some of her own choices, and it adds a little bit of movement to what is, effectively a very static part of the website, right? If you're on the Arcadia page, it was just her and a bunch of buttons. The buttons, will move around if you mouse over them, but sometimes because there's so many things to look at and click on, and you have to make a decision at this point. Like it's a big, a critical moment in your website viewing time is which thing am I gonna play, right? And if it's just a giant list of stuff, it's really easy to just be like, well, I'll just click on nothing. But if you're distracted a little bit by some movement, it kind of pushes you forward. I don't know if it's going to really solve the problem of like, oh, I want to click something. Really, what needs to happen is there needs to be like a game of the day that goes down here below the games section. But for now, I think it really like kind of gives some vitality to the website. Just chilling. Because, if you come here, she's doing something, right? Like the deer is flipping his tail. There's flower petals falling in the wind. And then you also have all of the stuff down here. But like that gives movement to the environment. So I think it makes a huge difference to have this here. It's funny if it pauses. I can't. Just the nature of how Unity sorts things. She's going to be in front of the pause screen. I thought about like putting in a day to try and fix this, but she's important. Like let her be forward. It's fine. Little, and I'm doing a lot of like little things that bother me. Like before, this said Arcadia and it was on the right, but if you are logged out and you're on the Arcadia page, uh, it this is like the demo section, right? So it says Arcadia here, and then it also said Arcadia here. So I don't like that kind of redundancy. And also, if it's your first time on the website and you start clicking these buttons, like you can mouse over them and get, a little bit of like a tooltip, some information. But also, like, just clarity of like, these are games. If you want to play games, these are games. And then centering it just so much better than it being on the right. It was on the right for years, and it drove me crazy every single time. But I just didn't have like what I felt like was a good solution. So I'm doing a couple. These are the things that I do, and then they bug me for a long time until I change them. So this is also center now. I don't know about this. Like, yes, it is description. This is an adventure game. Scroll down to see more about adventure. I don't love it. And so what I've done for the primer is this, I think just said primer 2, because when you're logged in, it doesn't give you this logo. And so what I've done is when you logged back in, this is a feature. I think I talked about this on a previous video that was really bugging me, where these buttons would just like constantly animate, and they were GIFs. And so they're out. It was weird. GIFs are really a huge pain in the butt because they're not like intuitive. Like, it's not like making a video where you can just like set a resolution. Like, GIFs are a very low resolution file format, and so you can't really get as much juice out of them as you really hope you can. And so this is one of those scenarios where I knew exactly what I wanted. I could describe it perfectly, but that doesn't mean you can figure out how to do it. Like, especially with CSS and JavaScript and HTML, like, you really have to learn all of it to even have the vocabulary to describe what you're trying to do enough to find a website that might explain it to you. And then you have to like generalize it and then make it specific to your own work. Huge pain. Like, I hate doing any kind of web development. Like, anytime I'm working on the website, it's like a panic attack in slow motion. And so this is one of those scenarios where something like ChatGPT is like foundational for me now, because and I realize the irony of me saying this because I'm currently on strike for against exactly these products, but this is sort of where I think like it becomes this huge important tool going forward, because like I said, I can describe it. I want these buttons, I want them to be still, low saturation. When I mouse over them, they light up. I click them, they press down, right? And then I have some code in the game that now, these are the knight skills, these are the wizard skills, these are the survivor skills, etc., right? But just like, I don't know how to make a mouse over in HTML generally. Like, every time I try and do something in CSS, I mess it up and it takes me days. And then, no one's going to sit down and work on this with me. Like, if you already know how to do it, it's like totally a waste of your time. I literally cannot pay people to help me with these kinds of problems. And it's really difficult to search for them, like I said before. And so to just be able to, in plain English, explain what you need, get a solution, and then try it. And if it doesn't work, explain why it doesn't work, and then get some possible solutions to that problem. Like, getting this to work, almost all of the time was spent exporting the GIFs to the right size. Like, oh, she's too big, she's too small, I like her centered, oh, she's too high up. You know what I mean? Like, those are Photoshop problems. And I'll do Photoshop problems all day long. I have no problem with that. But like, having her animate when you mouse over is not simple code. Like, in any other program, I could figure that out in 5 minutes. But like on the web, it's like this whole mess. So, really, I think this technology is so important for not wasting people's time helping me, right? And so I'm trying to utilize it a little bit more going forward, because something like this, these buttons have existed for probably 2 years, and I have not been able, I wasn't even willing to engage with the possibility of making this work. And so, now I can spend my time figuring out exactly how far I want this drop shadow to go. I'd rather spend an hour futzing with okay, when you press it down, it the shadow sharpens and stays where it is, but the button moves, or they sandwich together, right? Like those are problems I can deal with. So I'm pretty happy with this. I think maybe the saturation point could be a little bit lower. Maybe I think maybe one of these could, I don't know. This is like a big back and forth. Like, should the knight already be animating when it loads up, just so that it's something that you can interact with? But it's already a button. It's raised up. It has all of the visual language of all the other buttons. So like, it's hard not to mouse over something, and because if you're just scrolling down, you're gonna see like, oh hey, she moves. And then I think maybe there could be some transition animation here. So this is kind of what I'm going to be working on a lot going forward. Is those like little transition places, right? Like, so when you wrap up a level, it's always such a pain to try and show the reward screen because you have to get enough points to get a reward. But there's all of these like little things that I have avoided because they're polish, and if I change my mind later, I have to change it across all the games. And so you don't want to do that. You want to make it in a way that's efficient and extensible, right? And so that takes a lot of work. And so like you see when the skill comes forward, or it doesn't come forward, it like animates around, right? Like, and that's good. Like with Charlie, it adds a little bit of motion. It lets you know something is happening, that you earn some points, all of that stuff. But it's still fairly static. What I've wanted to do, and I've had it actually do this before, but I didn't do it efficiently, and I ended up taking it out, to have all these buttons kind of like pop forward a little bit and then start animating, and then they can light up when they close, all of that stuff. Like, these are things that you might spend a day on, but they make this huge impact. But also, you feel like you're spending a lot of time on something very, very small. And so what I've kind of come to accept, because I can't really engage with the Frontier prototype until I've raised money for some help. This is sort of where I can actually make some real impact, is like those little pieces of polish, like the stuff that makes you feel good in the moment that you eventually sort of stop noticing. And this is something I see a lot in games that I download games just to sort of see what people are doing, like especially in mobile games. I don't play them. I'm not. I will get sucked into something like a match game, but only if I'm like riding the bus a lot. So sometimes I'll download them just to kind of like see how they're doing this stuff. And what I find with games like mine, like small, like your Flappy Birds, right? Like something that lasts for like 15 seconds and then you start over. Even those games, even though they're really simple, they're doing a lot of like visual noise, right? Like everything is shining. Like if you get some points, it's these stars, and they've got depth, and they've got shine, and they've got like texture behind them, and it's just so much stuff. And I understand where that comes from, because you're trying to like maintain people's attention, and you're like, okay, well, what if they get distracted by something shiny on the bus? Then they're not going to play our dumb game. But I think that if that's the stuff that you're relying on to keep people's attention, then I think maybe what you're trying to do is waste people's time. And so I try to approach this sort of thing with an attitude of like, it should be something that you find, beautiful isn't really the right word for something like this, because it's more of like a minimalist graphical style, but something that like, it's maybe comforting. I don't know. So like engaging, right? Something that draws you in. And you can do a lot of work with just like a drop shadow and like a subtle color change, and, maybe a little shimmer on occasion. But, like next time you're playing a mobile game, like look at what's going on the screen. It is like a cacophony of animations. Drives me crazy. So I tend to, I think, err on the side of caution, and I think it can kind of make my work a little blander than I intend. And so I find it to be a delicate balance between like what's the necessity, and then what's something subtle that I can add that will, at the very least, if not draw your attention, but like provide some sort of animation, right? And so one of the reasons the buttons or the skills don't come forward right now is that they're not buttons, right? Like they are, they're just informational. And so within the visual language of Arcadia, the idea is if it comes forward, you can click it, right? And so what I think I probably need to do is make all of these skills actual buttons so that you click them. And I think the natural response would be to make it so that it takes you to the game, but if you're seeing it, you're already in the game, so that's not helpful. And so this is really only applicable in some instances, but like specifically like music, where you should be able to click the key of C, and below where it says games, it's like a skill section, and it says key of C, explains it, and then shows you all of the games that it affects or it comes from, and what like features it affects, right? So like key of C will change, ideally, right, in Frontier, it'll sort of change the kind of music that's playing in the background, or if something has sound effects, like it can keep those within those notes, right? Like these like little weird subtle things that I'm trying to do with the skills in these games, and to provide some context. The problem is like I have like 100 skills right now, and so that would be like a huge investment to write up all of that stuff. So I'm a little wary of digging into that just because of the amount. It'll take me like a week to do all of that, and it's like I have to write a bio about myself right now, and that kind of stuff just drives me crazy. Like I just want to show things. I don't want to discuss them or describe them or like talk them up. I just want to show them, and then you can make your own decisions about them. So I think that there's probably a solution here without turning them into buttons, but still giving them some movement. And I still think like forward is the right call. They could slide into place. I don't know. I'm gonna have to try it, and I know it's an investment, right? Like if I start working on it, I'm gonna want to finish it, and then once I finish it, I have to apply it across all of the experiences. And anytime I do something that works for Arcadia and Primer, it becomes a little tricky because they are visually very similar, but they're built slightly differently. So I have to relearn how I built the reward system in the Primer and then work on it. So this is one of those like scenarios where it really helps to have like sort of departments where, one person is in charge of Arcadia, person is in charge of the Primer. I show what needs to be done, and they can stick to their domains and fix it on their own. That's like sort of, to me, the ideal way you organize these kinds of things. But for now, it's just me. So, yeah, I don't know. I think this stuff is starting to look pretty good. I'm looking forward to doing like transition animations, like having colors slide across, sort of like how I do in this video, but maybe a little bit more subtle. But it's just those are the kinds of things that I'm gonna just make a million versions of them until I find one I like, and so it makes me feel like I'm not getting work done. So I'm working my way up as many little things as I can until I start making like big decisions. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm enjoying it, so I'm going to keep doing it. So I probably won't have a whole lot to show this week unless I make something really exciting. So I think that's probably it. I got a subscriber on this channel, which is crazy that someone is watching these videos. So hello, one subscriber. It's nice to see you. And I went to a game showing event. These are really important if you're a game developer, and I'm sure a lot of people who watch this will be game developers. And if you're making something and not taking it out and showing it, it's going to work against you. Even if I didn't show my game. I'm not really like, because what I want to be showing is Frontier. Like I've shown the Arcadia games. I know how people feel about them. They like them or they don't like them. That is sort of immaterial to me at this point. Like what I need is people to sit down, be Charlie, and like scan a flower and learn about it, right? Like, and not the old prototype. That's not good enough. But it's not, the current prototype isn't enough to actually have people sit down and play. So, it's always on my phone, and I can kind of show people around on the site and like get reactions from that, which have been, pretty positive, but I can't really do a full on play test at the moment. But it's really helpful to play test for someone else. Even if you don't want people playing your game, like play other people's and give them feedback, because what I found, someone was showing me their game and it was really cute, but like what I was finding was I was telling him the things that I know someone would tell me about my work, the things that like, not so much graphic stuff, like contrast stuff. That's a lot of my feedback was about contrast, and I do a pretty good job with contrast. But just as far as like where you put buttons, like, oh, I'm not paying attention to it because I'm distracted by something over here. All of those things, or when to give tips, all of that stuff is very obvious when you're playing someone else's game, but you're so close to your own, it's kind of hard to be objective about it. And so it's really helpful to, put yourself on both sides of the table. Um, what I should probably do is do a video about playtesting instead of getting into it too much here. But it was good to be around people. I used to go to these all the time. When I lived in Seattle. In LA, I don't do it as much, partly because I'm a working actor. But COVID made that really difficult. So now that people are back in the world and interacting again, it's really good to be, hanging out and helping people, giving feedback, helping people get some perspective on their work. Because everyone works so hard, and I find it to be very motivating. Even if you don't like any of the games that you see, even if you don't agree with people's design decisions or you think that your work is better or worse than theirs, what it really helps, I find, is to just see people working really hard, and caring about their work. Like, even if what they're making is not good, you don't have to tell them it's not good. But it's just, I think, valuable to pull some of that energy and let it motivate you as well. Because people really love the games that they make. Like, even if their thought process is just, I love Mario, I want to make Mario, here's my Mario. Like, that comes out of a place of passion. It's not like when you make an episode of a TV show past season 7 and it's just like, okay, well, the gang's at it again, so what? And that's like sort of an attitude you get a lot when you work in production on film. But in games, in the independent games community, at the very least, like it's these are labors of love. These are people are putting everything they have into them. Like, they're working late into the night after their normal job, and so you can't help but respect it and bring some of that back to your own work. So that's my recommendation for the week. Go out, do a game test, find the community. The in-person community in your area, right? Like, being on Discord and like chatting with strangers is not the same thing. I personally don't enjoy that. And I know a lot of people do, but I find that a lot of the feedback that people are getting each other in those situations are maybe insincere, maybe not so valuable. But when you're sitting right next to someone at a table looking at their game, like, you can't just say a quip and then disappear and then not finish your thought. Like, you have to explain yourself. And so, they're doing the construction outside. So I guess that's my cue. I can't be talking about this stuff anymore. I got to get back to work. So I hope you like the little animations. They're really cute. I'll catch you next time.